Okay. No, I did. Got it. All right. Let's see here. How do I do this? All right. So, the first thing are the primary contacts. I'm Adam. Hayes over on the side. She'll be leading much of the discussion here. Our primary numbers are there. If you have throughout this should all be in your handout as well. So, if you have any general how-to questions type things, we use the treasurer.admin@countyofdane.com just because if one of us is out or if both of us are out, it's faster turnaround for you and keeps things a little organized. Steve Cripps over here, if you have technical questions. Bob from Westport still goes municipality to municipality to help out. Property listing, Troy is here in person and Peggy is attending virtually. So let me go to the next screen real quick. And then I will let Troy talk after, well, maybe after two screens. The pretty basic agenda, it's in the packet that was emailed out before, linked on our website. Those present should have a copy. All right. General law changes. There's four things we have listed up here. One, personal property. Enjoy it while it lasts. Most of that will be going to real estate exempt personal property stuff. Troy will talk about all this. One of them being that mobile home parking ordinance. If you don't have one, you can talk to either Troy or the League of Municipalities or Towns Association to get that ordinance, and you guys can pass it, and he can tell you more. Personal property on leased land or whatever. Still improvements are going to be personal property. I'll leave the details to you. How about that? There is a recording document that if someone is wanting their individual improvements to be separate real estate, then they need to record it with the Register of Deeds. As far as shared revenue payment changes, that's, you probably have seen the dollar amounts change this year compared to other years. TID changes. Munis can request removal of personal property from base values on TIDs. And they need to, Department of Revenue needs to know that by October 31st. We're past it for this year, but you can do it for next year. Also, local assessors will need to report exempt personal property to the Department of Revenue. And that's on the current value, not on the base value. Another thing with TIDs is, and this is 2 years into the future, Department of Revenue is going to have reporting of additions, subtractions of TID new construction, but Department of Revenue is still working on their paperwork. They'll keep in touch with you. Which brings me to another thing. If you are not receiving emails from the Department of Revenue, sign up because they give you all these updates on whatever's new and upcoming. Go down to tax deed updates. There's been a change in state law and a federal Supreme Court case saying that if the county is taking property from somebody for non-payment of taxes, happens all the time. Not in big quantities, but it does happen. If we are not selling it by public auction, we need to make sure they're compensated for the difference in value. Otherwise, they have a takings claim because we're just taking property from them. So the changes in the law are, if we, for example, take the property and you, the municipality, want that property for whatever purpose, access to water, additional space for park, whatever. It would be the greater of three options. The amount due, including, interest penalty and cost of doing tax deed. The second option is fair market value, the equalized value. And the third is $100 flat fee, and that's usually if it's been sitting there, we've had it for 12 years or more, written off all the taxes, so there is none of the above, so $100 for something like that, but that's after 12 years. Everything else can be done immediately when we tax deed it. One other thing that's not up there I wanted to mention. LC 100s for lottery credits. Save the PDF now. Well, when you get back to your computers. Because Department of Revenue informed us last week that they're going to implement their online system, which means Department of Revenue gets all the information by an online form, no more paper forms, and then they ship us the information. And I requested they, instead of starting at mid-January when you guys are collecting and confuse everybody, to start in February. And they're talking about it, but we don't know what they're doing. They said paper forms will still work, but they're removing that link from online. So save your LC 100 forms. If anybody's wanting a lottery credit, encourage that instead of the other up until February when they have to apply for 2024 going forward. So that is all I have. Any questions on that stuff? All right, Troy, now you get to pump them up after I've put them all to sleep.
Thanks, Adam. All right, so I'm here to talk about a couple of things. First of all, I didn't introduce myself right away in the morning session, so let me do that. I'm Troy Everson. I'm the land records administrator for planning and development. So we're right next door to Adam and Kay. We do the basically all the mapping and listing. So everything that's on access data is the stuff that we manage. And today I'm going to talk about a couple of things. One, as I mentioned, personal property and the fact that that's going away for the most part. And then also a little bit about special assessments, because it's that time of the year, right? So first of all, let's talk about personal property. So as Adam mentioned, legislation passed to eliminate personal property. However, there's a couple of elements of the personal property rule that are technically real estate and they'll be moving over. That's your P4B and P4C, which is buildings on leased land and mobile homes. So building on leased land would be like airport hangars, those kind of things. The mobile homes, obviously. And then, as Adam mentioned, one of the ways that a lot of municipalities are dealing with the mobile home issue, if you have them in your municipality, is to enact a mobile home ordinance so that you can collect fees in lieu of the taxation part of it. So it just makes it a little bit easier on everybody, especially if you want split tax bills. So the preference on all of this and the assessor's default sort of move on this is going to be to roll over those values on those buildings on leased land, the mobile homes, those kind of things onto the real estate roll. So that parent parcel is going to just accumulate that value. Instead of having that personal property bill, the value will by default go to the real estate roll. There are other mechanisms though. There is state statute as it was passed allows for the property owner, if they want, to create a separate tax bill for that improvement on leased land. And as you know, as a manager of our property listing function, you know, that kind of concerns me. We want to make sure that stays uniform with the rest of the real estate role. So I've been working with the Department of Revenue with a couple other members of different groups, the assessors, registered deeds, treasurers. Did I say assessors? I suppose that's obvious. And we've been really working on this and trying to sort of address all the hurdles that come with the sort of dealing with these items moving to a real estate role. And so the first option obviously is going to be to handle it just like real estate. So we're going to require if somebody wants a split parcel or an individual parcel for their airport hangar or billboard or whatever it happens to be, is that they're going to have to record a document. And that document is, you'll be seeing more about it shortly. If you have subscribed to the Department of Revenue's newsletters, they'll be sending something out before the end of next week, talking about the rewrite of the Wisconsin Property Assessment Manual. In particular, this is chapter 19 and how to deal with personal property and how to deal with, these two classes. They're technically buildings, fixtures, and improvements. And so we've come up with a document called BFI. We're pretty creative that way. And that document is going to require somebody to fill out and have a legal description, a meets and bounds legal description. And that falls in line with the rest of the real estate role, in particular, because we need to have a meets and bounds description to be able to foreclose on it. So if there are delinquent taxes, that's the big ticket on that is this BFI document. There are other mechanisms that you can use in according to state statutes. You can have a CSM done, you can have a subdivision plat, you can have a condominium plat, even reference an assessor's plat. The problem with all of those is they create legal land divisions. And sometimes a property owner isn't going to want to do that. They want somebody to just own those assets and not the actual land that lays beneath it. So this BFI document attempts to only address the assets for the leaseholder. Okay. So that document would have to be recorded before the first of the year. I know that timeline is a really short window, especially now, because we're looking at, 2 months before it would have to be recorded. So the other option is if you come into somebody, a property owner or leaseholder in your municipality that wants a split tax bill, you can always use there's statutes where you can split that tax bill, working with the assessor at the time of like the 2024 taxes. So if somebody comes to you and they want to split tax bill, the assessor's aware of it. They'll work with you on creating a separate tax bill for those items. What else do they have to purchase property? Any questions about it? Okay, so the other item that I wanted to mention on it, because I deal with the mapping side of things, the other part is how do we represent this? How do we sort of spatially represent these buildings on leased land? Because we certainly don't want to include separate polygons. If you have an airport hangar that has 20 different hangars, we don't want one tax parcel with a bunch of polygons basically pockmarking that larger tax parcel. I know that our zoning administrator had some issues with that from a land division standpoint and what constitutes a legal land division. So to represent those on our GIS mapping, they're actually going to end up being points that we use an XY coordinate from, tie in a parcel number to it, and then link our attributes. So they'll still show up in Access Dane. They'll show up, I don't know how we'll symbolize them, but it'll be more of a point. And if you're in DCI map and you're running sort of a spatial query, trying to select everything within a certain distance, 1,000 feet or whatever, these records will still pop up. So you'll still get notifications. You'll still be able to do those kind of things. Make sense? Everybody just had lunch and you're all tired. Okay. Adam's got chocolate out for everybody, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right, okay. Any questions about personal property? No questions? Okay, fantastic.
Right, I guess when you after define the deliberate about the assessors contacting people.
Yeah.
It's just, just so they don't. think
Right,
that-
right. It's not a bad idea to talk to your assessor. In fact, I would recommend you talk to your assessor about contacting the folks that might fall in these categories. I mentioned 2 different types of personal property, the P4B and P4C. Those just handle 2 bits of it. There's more that an assessor might consider fixtures or improvements that don't fall into those 2. So assessors have a challenge ahead of them. But one of the things that the DOR and other organizations are trying to do is have assessors be proactive in reaching out to folks, let them know what the protocol is, see how they'd like to move forward, and to let them know that by default it's going to go on the real estate unless some other some other method is taken. So yeah, reach out to your assessors and just make sure that they have a handle on it. We're going to be sending something out from the county standpoint to all the assessors that we work with, because we want to make sure that we're covering all our bases. Donnie used to always say that we're belt and suspender people. So, we'll put out notices as many times as we can. I'm just waiting until we finalize that BFI document. We're still working with, we've been doing this for a year now. You would think that we would be close to being done, but there's always issues. It's always feels sometimes like it's whack-a-mole, something pops up, from some other organization that brings up an issue and we're like, back to the drawing board. But we'll be done with everything by the end of next week. That's when the DOR is going to release the new sort of guidelines in that Wisconsin Property Assessment Manual. Have you all read that? It's a good time. Yeah, isn't it great? Yeah. I mentioned chapter 19. I think it goes all the way to 26. It's great. It's not fun. But anyway,
You should report it on your YouTube channel and let me just find it.
Yeah.
do you like my YouTube channels? Oh, that's awesome, because I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Yeah, you can catch me just reading from the WPAM. We always call it WPAM because it's just the WPA, but yeah, I probably won't be doing that. I feel like I've looked at it way too much this year. The two things that impact us on the county side were chapter 7 and chapter 19. Chapter 7, we had another work group to rewrite that. One of the big things was standardization. We wanted to be able to standardize our data between assessors, between municipalities, between the state. We also wanted to see if we could get additional attributes from the assessors. Right now, we collect data from the assessors, but it's basically just to create the tax bill. So we'll get improvements, we'll get land, get class, acreage, a few other things. But we don't get things like square footage and number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms. So we've asked the state to sort of put that into the manual and ask assessors to start sharing a little bit more of the attributes. Now, we don't want to get into the nuts and bolts of how they calculated and how they came up to things, but we just kind of want to make sure that there's a little more transparency in the assessment process and that we have that. One of my frustrating things, it shouldn't even be frustrating, but we had something happen maybe 10 years ago where the county got a grant to notify everybody for lead abatement, right? So if there was lead in their homes, there was a grant so people could apply for it and get funding to help get rid of it, right? Or do whatever, cover it up. I don't know if I said that right or not. I was just gonna go with it, but you guys caught me. We didn't have the information for the houses and when they were built before 1978. So we didn't know that. So we went to our assessors and said, hey, do you have this? And a bunch of them had it and a bunch of them didn't. Or a bunch of them couldn't share it with us. Those that are on Market Drive couldn't share it with us. Market Drive charged us for the data. So that was one of the things that, for a while has kind of been like, oh, that's kind of silly. We're trying to help our constituents. We pay our assessors for this, service, and then they can't even share the data. And it wasn't your assessor, it was the assessor's software company. So I think things are changing now, though. The state has had some really good conversations with some of these software companies, and I think there's a willingness to sort of get there. So little baby steps, but that was the other thing that will ham. So if you notice those changes in chapter 7 when you're reading it, just kidding, Bobby. Anyway, okay, so those were the two things that I want to talk about there. Any questions? Okay, great. So you're all ready to talk about special assessments? Okay, awesome. So again, special assessments I think since 2017 will be done on Access Dane. I think it's a pretty good process. I'm not going to go into the details on the process because, as Bobby mentioned, there are fantastic YouTube videos out there. I think they're fantastic. I don't think everybody does it. I only have 100 and some views. And I keep hitting click, 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 and then I'm doing whatever. 84 of them are mine. But anyway, they are out there. And I actually did rewatch one this morning. So one is mine. Just to make sure that I captured everything that I wanted to share in some of this stuff today. So have you all gotten an email from me this year that specials are ready? If you haven't, let me know and I can forward that off to you. What we try to do is send out a message to everybody that's already got the role of an administrator or an editor in Access Dane. But obviously that doesn't get to everybody, or it can't get to everybody. We get a bunch of undeliverables back and it's kind of like, okay, I hope that this made it to everybody. So if you didn't get it, I have some cards here that I can share with you. Is anybody new? Is this their first year? We're talking to everybody. Do I even need to talk about special assessments? Maybe I should just, you guys all know it? Okay. Anyway, special assessments we handle the same way. So you've got an administrator and you've got an editor, right? So the administrator is sort of the organization's gatekeeper on your specials, and your editors, you can assign multiple editors. You just have to give them that role. We did that because it's kind of scalable. Some municipalities have a lot of different people that are putting in this information. City of Fitchburg, I know they have somebody from, their engineering putting in like stormwater stuff, somebody from, the financial side putting in trash and pickup and, a bunch of different folks. And this allows them to do that. So you can have multiple people entering in your specials as an editor. When you are putting in your specials as an editor, you've got a couple different ways you can add parcels. So you can search by a parcel number, you can add an amount, and you can add it right to it. So if you've got something like a delinquent utility and you've only got like 5 records, you can do those individually for those 5 because they're unique, unless you have like habitual non-payers of their utilities, and you probably do. But anyway, that's one way to do it. You can add them individually. You can also batch load them through a CSV file. If you need help with that, I can help you. If you have like a financial software that you can export values out of, all you need is a 12-digit parcel number, a comma, and then the value. That file can be imported into Access Data as an editor. The other option is to bring your records from last year forward, right? So like if you have trash pickup and it's your full, 80% of your municipality, you can pull all that in. You don't have to rekey 1,000 records, right? So you can pull that forward from last year. It'll pull the value and the parcel. So if your trash pickup was $140 last year and it needs to be $150, you can actually do a search and replace on all those values, or just update them automatically, just like in previous, right? So the only catch on that is if you pull from last year, it's going to pull your 2022 tax parcels. If anything was split in 22, your 23, it's not going to exist in your 23 roll. So you're going to get a little red message that says, hey, this parcel doesn't exist. Kind of track its history in Access Dane and find what record that value should be placed on. Is everybody familiar with that process? Okay, good. And then the other gotcha in all of this is if there was a special that was added after the tax bill was created. I know there's a time in January that Adam goes in and kind of puts it into the collection module. Did I say that right? My poker face isn't really good. You guys are kidding me when I don't feel confident when I'm talking about. Okay, so if he adds something after the tax bill is created, that is not going to be there because it's not in our assessment side of the software. So that's something to keep an eye on too, just in case you're not balancing or you're not getting what you expected to see. Okay, so as an editor, when you're all done with all that stuff, you hit save, you hit finish. Then your administrator gets a notice that says, hey, awesome, so-and-so is done with this special. I proof it, let them, if everything looks great, then fantastic. Each one of those specials needs to be kind of confirmed by the administrator, but once they're done, the administrator then has to submit them to the county. And that's kind of a key part. Once they get submitted, then that's our trigger to run totals and send them back to you. If you haven't gotten totals back, after you thought you submitted to the county, it might have been because you didn't hit submit. So you might have just finished them, but there's a next step after that, and that's submitting. That's available only to the administrator. So hit submit to the county. Peggy will run totals and send them back to you probably within a day or so. I mean, she's not going to like that I said that, right, Peggy? I don't know if she's on or not, but anyway, a day, she'll get back to you. If she doesn't, check us out, give me a call, send me a message, or Peggy. Okay. That's specials. So we'll send you totals back and we'll send you the final roll as well. And we'll ask you to kind of proof that. The one thing that you'll have to keep in mind, because that final roll that we're going to give you includes manufacturing values. We have manufacturing right now. We're starting to enter that. So that's going to differ from your statement of assessment when you did your submittal there, your final board review roll. You're going to have some different values in there unless you don't have manufacturing, and that's great. But I think this is always the time of the year when I'm like triple checking values, and I always get calls that, whoa, this doesn't match. And I always get so nervous. Look and grab and then add, and I go blind looking at. That's why I have glasses this year. Anyway. Okay, what did I miss that I should have said? Oh, the other question that came up this morning is a really good point. There are 2 countywide specials that you'll see on your total sheet when we send it back to you. There will be private septic maintenance that's included on there. Public health puts those in, so you'll see that there. The other thing that you'll see, and I forgot again, what is it that you're doing? Ag conversion. You'll see ag conversion on there as a special assessment as well. Yep.
Sure. Just my second.
Sure.
and I haven't been in the software. We have a new special that if there's someone software that says for a new category,
No, well, either way, really, there's an automated way, once you're in the application that you can do that, you'll see as an administrator. You'll have your special codes up top, and then it's on the lower right-hand side. That's hard for me, but that's on the lower right-hand side, it'll say request new code. You can just type in what you want it to be or whatever, hit submit, and it'll get sent to Peggy, and she'll set that up for you. You can also send us an email, that's fine as well. We just did one for, Town of Oregon, actually, right in between break, the morning and afternoon session.
feel the preference on what we might see.
We'll get it either way, whatever's easiest for you. No, I appreciate that, but we'll get it either way, really, we will, so. However, do you know that you have one? Because we can just tell Peggy right now. If you don't have
Oh, yeah, I need that garbage.
Okay, Peggy has garbage, Village of Couch Grove. Okay. I don't know, that's just gotta be fun, my forward number. You'll try.
Are there any lottery credit penalties?
Not this year. There's no farm drainage this year. There's no lottery credit penalty this year. It's only ag conversion from our office.
Okay, any other questions? Does anybody read my business card? You guys are letting me off easy. This morning, they were like, what about this, Troy? What about that? No, I'm just kidding, they weren't really like that, but.
Your YouTube videos go.
Do you like that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They're getting a little dated. I might need to, update some things just because I think those were from they're probably 5 years old now.
Ranks right up there with what's.
Steve, I'd have to say that they're timeless and when you do something right, you don't have to change it.
It's like watching tape.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, well, thank you. Let us know if you have any questions. It's gonna be a busy season, but we're here to help. And if you need us to convert a file or come out and help you with anything, let us know. We're more than willing to do that. So, thank you all.
I'll change your card.
And just so you guys know, the guidelines that he has on entering specials are on the municipal treasurer's website. So, because you sent me that manual, so you can look at that as well. But obviously he really likes to get your call, so.
I love calls. All right, enjoy the rest. What's that?
That you are in the meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Thanks, Troy. Okay. So. Adam went through his part. Now I get the fun part. Really simple, 20 slides or so and tax bills will be created, we'll be good. First, I'm going to talk about just a couple of basic things. Adam brought this up to use the treasurer admin email. You send to me, I'm gone. You send to him, he's gone. But also it's easier to track it because then we keep track of stuff you're asking in that admin email. So, and sometimes we're terrible about it too. When we send something out, we send it from ours. So you just respond to us. We should send it from admin too. We try. So the more we can all use that, the better. The bank account changes. If you've changed banks or if your bank has been bought out by, Lake Ridge or something, get me those updates. I mean, I think we're set with everyone. We just sent you something in September with the specials. So if you got that, you're probably good to go. So, but I just always mention that it's there in case you change. Later on, we're going to talk just a little bit about a very slight change on the cover form for the dog licenses. It's just something that the county clerk needed. So we've been trying to work with them on all these forms so that there's one document. You don't have to fill out 2 or 3 different things. So there's just a slight change. I'll talk about that a little later. We talk about omitted taxes a little bit later. But I just want to bring up that if you had an omitted last year that didn't end up on your SOT or from the year before that, that will have to go on your SOT. Now that you've created the tax bill, that will have to go on your SOT for this year. And And then I'll be asking you if it was paid or not, because I need to enter that for DOA at our settlement when we settle with them in February and March. There'll be, how many of you are going to Land Nav? So we have quite a few in this session. There will be things in this training. This training is based on using GCS, the old program. But there will be things I'll bring up. And then a lot of that will go over tomorrow when we do our actual training on Land Nav and the changes that will affect you with. But there will be a few that I bring up in this session today. Then the third one on that page, we put all of your settlement documents onto Access Dane. This year we'll be adding the 2023 settlement documents. So it really behooves you to get your 20s off, because we have to delete some to make more room. So anything you haven't saved to your own computers, or some jump drive or external drive or whatever, you'll want to save those 2020 documents, because we'll be pulling those out of Land Nav or out of Access Dane. Okay, so then this is just a repeat, but we're doing the same with BCS this year. Either they will mail out your tax bills for you, or you will pick them up there. Quite honestly, it's turned out to be easier to have it done there than having them ship it downtown. You guys have to come downtown. So I'm hoping that works well for everyone. They seem really good about managing that stuff. And then I just always bring this page up because not as many new, we had a lot of new people in our session this morning. This is where you go for everything you need. The county levy will be there when we have a budget. The check that I gave you today, I gave you a hard copy of your checklist of everything you have to do by month. That's on there. The full menu is on there, which is many, many more pages. In GCS, it will tell you how to download the program, will be there. All that stuff that you need, click on that Municipal Treasures and you'll have it. Okay, so, and speaking of which, there are 3 accounts that you need someone in your office to be in. Some of you split up your work between the clerk and the treasurer differently. But basically what you need this Access Dane account, because that's where you'll find all your settlement documents. Even Troy will contact you with stuff that's in there, a little different. There's a treasure site and a property listing site, but you'll need to have an Access Dane account. The Municipal Treasure site, after you click on this box in there, there'll be an ability to log in. And when you log in, then it's not like public information, it's information just for you. So once you log in there, there's some information you'll get there as well. So you need that login site. And then you also need to have a DOR login, because you fill out a lot of your forms on the Department of Revenue, the State Department of Revenue site. So you'll need to have that login as well. So if you don't have some of those, go into the manual, and like the first, like page 3 to page 6 or whatever, gives you step-by-step instructions about how to get into each of those portals that you'll need. So the final thing I put on this page, and it was added later, so you won't see it on your sheet, sorry. I was looking this up the other day and thought it's got to go somewhere. So you are getting stuff probably now from your school districts, and it will show their levy for the year, and it will show those referenda. I got a call this week or an email this week from someone who they got their levy, but there was no referenda information on it. They were sort of hoping that meant we didn't have to do that. That is not true. So what I told her, and what I thought would be helpful to you guys, if you want to check your school district levy information, this is the website. That has all the school districts in the state, and trust me, we have way too many. But in those, if you look at the financial data box, then it will show the levies. Don't look when you get back today, because it's not there yet. It's due to the Department of Revenue on November 1st. So I don't think they even start adding it until, probably next week. So, if you don't see data in there for 23, 24, ignore it, because the 21, 22 data isn't going to help you. But everything will be there. If there's anything you're missing, if you lose track of a piece of paper or something, it's all there. So, and I can send that out to make sure you have that website as well. Okay, so now you've got all these pieces of paper in front of you, and it's time to create tax bills. So your end of that starts with that stuff Troy was just talking about. Getting those specials in, getting them balanced, getting them submitted to the county. That's your first step. That once you're done with that, and like he was talking about, if your administrator has not submitted it to the county and balanced it with Peggy, then your mill rate worksheet will not open. So, you can wait around and call them 3 days later, but until you have sort of checked the box that you're balanced with property listing, the mill rate, once you do that, they click the mill rate worksheet open. At that point, you can start entering your levies. So until then, you'll just be gathering all these things. Your local levy, I assume most of your budgets aren't done. I asked this morning, does anyone know that they have a very late budget meeting in their municipality? Yours is. Okay. That's not terrible, not great, but not terrible. We've had worse. Well, it's really nice when they're done by the end of November, quite honestly.
Okay.
But, yeah, I mean, right, okay, I mean, and you'll make it with we'll get to this later, but December 18th, your bills have to be in the mail. So that's tightish, but that's not terrible. I told people this morning, we had one last year that was the Thursday. It wasn't the Friday, it was the Thursday before they had to be mailed.
That was awesome.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. That's just crazy.
I'm done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We had stuff already calculated with the assumption of what the budget would be, and so it was very tight. So December 5th, piece of cake. But it's something to think about when you talk to your boards, because it does affect getting your taxes done. The county one, again, will be on our website as soon as we have one. School districts, you should be getting them now. They have to have budgets earlier because their year is different. Tech colleges, I literally just got the numbers from Southwest. I haven't got Madison yet. None of you are Southwest, but there's 2 you have some. Oh, no, okay.
Where you guys put your one on, you go to the municipal.
Okay.
We have that. There.
Yep. So yeah, I can say, I don't have, the tech colleges aren't listed anywhere. Oh, the schools. Oh, yeah. Yep, I will send that. I think I wrote that note this morning to send everyone because I didn't have it on. So you will have that.
Yeah, and I thought maybe it would be nice if you need to put that link in the municipal. Then we want to be kind of right under your 400 or county phone.
Okay, yeah, I can put it there. Yep, I can put it there. And again, you should get that stuff from the school districts. They're pretty good about it, but sometimes it's nice to have a good check there. So, so now you have all those pieces of paper in front of you. And I never know which order to put this in, the mill rate worksheet or the other stuff you have to send with it, but basically when you get open this mill rate worksheet on your computers, this is what you have to fill out. Only this section. You fill in the levies. Below this is your specials. You've already worked that out with Troy and Peggy. They're completed. These, your values are on your SOA. That's already in here. None of this other stuff, this calculates by itself. You have to fill this in. So don't get bogged down with a lot. I mean, there's a lot on this sheet of paper, but worry about this line. Now, to get this line is what, you know, what we'll talk about next. So, you've now submitted your mill rate worksheet. And then you need to send 3 things to us. We need to have that referenda form. You now all have a referenda. There's not one municipality in Dane County who doesn't have one. There were a few holding out there. Stoughton held out and Village of Cambridge, but they're toast now. So everyone has one. If you have TIDs in your municipality, then we need that tax incremental worksheet. And then I need your statement of taxes through section E. And we'll look at all these things now, just so, you know, just as a good reminder, since you do this once a year, it's all bringing it back, I can imagine. Trust me, it does for me, even when I look through this. So, okay, so the first one is our very favorite referenda page. Just totally pointless in calculating your taxes, by the way. If they get it wrong and I ask them for, you know, have a new copy sent to me, they're all panicked because they think their taxes are, they're not wrong. It's just that piece of, that's just on it. So basically, you know what, they're generally school districts. There's a couple that have municipal ones. But so you put in like some sort of identifier for the referenda. Make sure you use the amount. Let me just go to this next page. I think I have it right, next page. So what you want to do is make sure that you use the amount for this year of taxation, not for the entire referenda, because it goes over 10 years, 20 years. So make sure you use that correct number. Most of you, I mean, I haven't had much issue with that with people. This is the tricky number because I need the assessed value on this form. The school district on their form has this line, but they have the equalized value. So people just copy it off that school district form. That is not the right value to have in column 3. It has to be the assessed value from your mill rate worksheet if you've done it, or from your SOA. Column 3 of your statement of assessment. That's the one that Peggy and Troy help you with. So that's where we're generally off on those when people have trouble with them. This column, it gives you a rate that calculates by itself. So, and then obviously in the end, you have to add the year that these end. And if you look at this is generally what you get from school districts. It'll have, you know, the amount for this year, when it expires, a referenda ID. Honestly, I don't know how those are created. So this has all the information you should need on that form. So it doesn't seem that complicated of a form, but when you have so many of them, which some of you do, it's sort of a pain to fill out. If you have TID district, basically what you have to add, most of these things are on it. DOR already has what the county levy is. They already know what these school district levies are. So most of this information is already auto-filled when you open up your TID district worksheet. You will need to put this local levy. They probably have that, but that one's not on there. So that one will have to come up. The thing that you need this worksheet for is this column, because this column is what you use for your mill rate worksheet. These are the numbers that go in your levy column on your mill rate worksheet. So if the county sends you on your county apportionment sheet, the county will have a levy of $11,800,000. But that's not the amount you put on your mill rate worksheet. You put this amount because it puts the TID in. So you have to make sure you use these numbers to put on your mill rate worksheet. That's the only trick to that sheet. Actually, that sheet's not too tough to fill out. The county levy, I brought this up this morning. I still don't, we have a negative and then a full number and then the real number. You know, it goes back to some state credit thing, but whatever. So we have to have these on here. And in fact, I have to put them each into our system, the minus and the plus and the final. It's crazy, but if we could just use the final, we'd be good. But I just give you the lines here to use so you know which lines. Line 4, line 16, line 35, you're good. There's a lot of other stuff on there that quite honestly is never filled in.
What are those lines from?
These are from the county apportionment sheet, which will be the one on our website. It will show what the county levy is for your municipality. And on those lines, you will see the amounts you have to put into your SOT right here. So. And then you will get to the next page. Hold on, do I have one here? Yeah, look at this. Nope, this is correct. So, the special taxing districts, if you're not in those municipalities, unless you're creating something new, they're lake districts or they're actual taxing districts. They're like your school districts. They're separate taxing districts. Those go up there. Again, only those, at this point, only those 4 municipalities have them. A lot of you have a fire or EMS district, or many of them in some cases. So if you have those, they go with your municipal levy, with your town, village, or city levy in section C. So you can keep them separate for now. At some point, we're going to lump all those together into your local levy. DOR makes us, for settlement, use them only as your local levy. We cannot split out the EMS, the fire. It's done for a different role at DOR, which is your levy limit worksheet. But at some point, we also don't, when we do settlement, you won't see what was collected as part of your levy, as part of the fire district, as part of EMS. But if you look at your tax bills, many of you have listed separately your EMS or your fire district and then your local levy. But they are truly, in the eyes of DOR for taxes, they are your local levy, period. There's just one number. So some of you will have these, some of you will not, some of you will have many. I mean, I think we have a couple that have, like 6 EMS and fire districts. So, so that you could have some of that. And then you just enter your actual total levy and you get this amount plus this amount equals your actual levy for the municipality. So, I'm not sure why I did this, but okay. Going too far ahead here. Oh, because I put them in. Okay. 1, 2. I think that's why I did it. Okay, so again, I'm sort of just trying to show you what you're going to get from each of these, so it's not as confusing, but you'll see that that's the school district of Belleville, and they'll have an amount. That's their total levy. And then you'll get, like Madison Technical College, you'll get the same thing. You'll get a lovely letter, but then you'll get like what your levy is for the tech college. Just so those aren't unfamiliar when you see them. So then you'll get to this page and you'll fill in your school district and that amount from that sheet. for every school district you have. It'll total up at the bottom. These are obviously listed separately on your tax bill because each person only has one school district. You might have 4 in your municipality, but each tax bill only has one. And then you'll have one tech college. Which, you know, that's always the easy one and quite honestly, the smallest one. So then you're done with the tech college, you stop at that point. There are still 4 pages left to your SOT. Those don't affect tax bill creation. This number will auto calculate at the top of section E. And, oh no, F, sorry. And this is the number we use for your total levy, and that's where you stop. So you're done at that point. And you email us with those 3 things, and then we take over and start collecting, correcting, calculating taxes. At some point, you'll get an email. If Adam spots stuff that's actually very weird about your tax bills, what we do is we take the information you've given us. I do a few comparisons on levy by using that school district website. I get an email from the tech college to tell us how much they are. I know what the county levy is, and I don't know yours. So that will be the one that, you have to have right, because I can't check it. I look at those to make sure I get everything into the system. And then Adam calculates the bills. Sometimes it takes a long time. He sits there and watches it. And then once he has that PDF of all of your bills, he flips through them. And on a tax bill, it'll show 2022 tax year and then the 2023 tax year, and it'll show a percentage up or down. Well, if all of those are showing 1% up, 0.5% up, 1% up, or 1% down, 1%, up, he just says, here's your tax bills, look at them. If, however, it says 17% up, 13% down, 14% up, 15% up, then he's going to call you and say, did you do a reevaluation? Because that's weird. So at that, especially when they're all over the place, then you'll get a call. It happens. We had a lot of reevaluations last year. So some were huge. How they adjust. Some people's bills went up 20%, and some people went down by that much. So if something like that happens, Adam will give you a call. Otherwise, they shoot into Access Dane, and you'll get an email saying they're there, and you should look at them. And I just have a short list here of things you should look at for sure. Make sure the address on your bill is correct. You don't want to send out 1,200 bills and they can't come back to the right place. We check those things with you, but I just always fear that we're going to have 1,200 bills that go to the wrong place. Another issue, 2 years ago, we had 6 municipalities that when we pulled our information out of GCS onto tax bills, it showed Treasurer, P.O. Box 2, and the city. It did not show that it was the town of Montrose or the village of Cottage Grove. It didn't show the municipality. It's in our system. It's in the same place it is for everything else, but it didn't show up. So last year we checked those even before we sent the bills out. There were still a few that we had to do some weird adjustments to. It's something in the system and they haven't figured it out. So check them to make sure your municipality shows outside of your address. I know that's an odd thing to check, but and then like the stuff Adam does, check those percentages. I think that's the best way to see if the bills look correct or not. Look at yours, see if that makes sense to you, if your tax bill looked right. And then, you'll probably all think it's too high, but whatever. And then make sure that the stupid referenda show up on the bill. cause they have to. So those are the big things. There's a couple other things that, you may spot. Cause you know your tax bills better maybe, but, those are the key things I think to look at. The tax manual for tax creation, I have included the sort of every document for 3 municipalities to create the process you guys do to create tax bills. If you're stuck somewhere and you just want to look at samples of somebody else's, I used a town, a village, and a city. So they have everything in them. I know it's a lot of pieces of paper. You can look online, but that might help you if you get stuck somewhere and you just want to look at somebody else's to see how it's done. I have the bonus of seeing 60 of these things. So, if I see a mistake on one and someone else makes it, I know right away because I just did one like that. You guys don't have that same luxury, I guess, to look at all those because it really does help. I can spot mistakes a little easier because I see so many of them. So, and there is always calling us. So we brought this date up before December 18th, you'll be fine. You have to have them in the mail. Now, Lord knows you're going to get calls way before that. So you probably want to get them in the mail as soon as you can after you've looked at them and whatever. But I mean, if it kills 20 calls a day, probably a good thing. So they have to be mailed by then. At that point, you have to complete that SOT with the documents that we've uploaded to Access Dane. It'll give you all the rest of the numbers you need to fill out the rest of the SOT. So that has to be filed with DOR by this 18th and then send us a copy as well. And then the thing that we need a copy of, you don't need to send it to DOR, but is this tax roll certificate. You used to have to physically sign it. Now you don't, just email it to us. That's fine. I checked with Corp Counsel, they're fine with it. And this is the site where you find that. I know those are long, but sometimes you're reading them. So that's what has to happen by December 18th. And then they're created. So we're gonna, unless people want to break, we're gonna keep going. We're rolling pretty fast. Yeah, we've all done this stuff. You're good. Okay, so now you're gonna collect taxes. Most of you are gonna collect still in GCS. So we're gonna talk generally about that. You collect, but you can, I didn't even bring this up this year, but, based on August 1st, you can accept payments for 2023 taxes. I don't know how many of you have people come in and pay early. They basically they can't pay more than their bill last year. But people can, after August 1st, it's state law that people can come in and pay you a portion of their taxes. Not really sure why, but that's just a requirement. I don't know how much of that you guys see. As far as though, if you do get those, you don't even have tax data yet, so it's not like you can enter them anywhere. When you do finally enter them, the dates you can use for tax collection are December 2nd through January 31st. You cannot use December 1st. You certainly can't use November. December 1st, we use for lottery credits at the county level. So, which you guys in Land Nav will do because you will use December 1st for lottery credits. We'll talk about that more tomorrow, obviously. But so I think you're not new here at this point. So I think, you know that each thing is in a batch. We have many pieces of advice for how you enter batches. I think most of you have figured out how it works for you. You do a batch per person, you do a batch per day, your batch matches your deposit. Those are just simple things. Don't ever make batches too large. Because man, if it doesn't balance and you've got to go through 250 checks, it is not a pretty thing. So, and Bob talks about this a lot when we do our training tomorrow, our computer training, keep them not so small that then it becomes cumbersome, but not so big that you can't clean up when you don't balance. So a few more things. Here's our notes on. Okay, so like I said, December 1st is Save for Lottery credits. A lot of people want you to enter December 31st as the date for, even if you get it on January 10th, because they want to use it for their taxes in 2023. You can, it's not illegal, but the fact is that in GCS, when you export to us, we use batches. So as long as it's in a batch that's considered February settlement, I don't care what date it has. That said, you have absolutely no responsibility if you get something in the mail on January 3rd. I don't care what the postmark is, you do not have to put a December 31st date. I mean, that if they really wanted it by the 2023 tax year for their income tax, they should have got it to you on December 20th. Whatever. I mean, there's no requirements on your part that you technically predate those payments. I know we get a lot of calls about that. Because people are demanding it. So, creating a batch per deposit. I mean, obviously we talk about stuff like that. The only other thing is, I always pick on CoreLogic because God knows they pick on us. So CoreLogic sends you a check, big check for 25 parcels. 3 of those parcels, the person couldn't wait long enough because they were concerned it wasn't going to come in on time. So they already paid. So those checks in our system, we enter those as a separate batch. It is just so much easier because they're going to call you. The taxpayer is going to call you and say, listen, I paid, but now CoreLogic won't give me back my money because it's not really CoreLogic they're working with. It's some bank that they have who sold it to CoreLogic. I mean, it's better to have those separate. So a lot of those bigger things like that, again, it's totally up to you guys, but that would be sort of a recommendation. Yeah.
What do you do on it? I had one last year, he was paid himself.
Yeah.
Paid for project.
Yeah.
And then another escrow. But I had 3. So I had and
Yeah.
one was in the December collection, one was in the.
Right.
So I had 2 refunds for it. But if your check comes from CoreLogic
Yeah.
or any,
Well,
and the owner has already paid.
right. We just send
You send the money back to the.
see,
Into
that's
the-
where we have a little difference with a lot of municipalities. We only send overpayments back to the person who wrote the check. We never, ever send back to the taxpayer.
And I'm wrong.
Well, again, I know a lot of municipalities send it to whoever's on the tax bill, but the fact of the matter is, I don't know, based on CoreLogic or the mortgage lender or whoever, I don't know how that money worked. So we send it to the person who wrote the check, period. They have to fight it out. So in your case, where you got those 3 payments, the problem with that CoreLogic one is, again, you've got a $95,000 check and 20 parcels. So you have to put the check in.
Right.
So in that case, this is what the hell is on. I would send that 1 or 2 or 3, whatever parcels were already paid. I would send that amount back to CoreLogic. That's what we do.
I did that last year and they go, why did you do that? I had to write a special letter.
We just shoot them back. It's for them to figure out. I mean, we tell them what parcel it is and the fact that it was a full overpayment.
It was like, they didn't know what I was talking about.
They even send us envelopes to send them back overpayments.
Yeah, they give you the information.
Yeah,
on a-
yeah.
On a sheet of paper for me,
Right,
you know.
right. No, I mean, that's their job. And those mortgage companies are paying them a lot to do that job. Pretty weekly, quite honestly. Again, in your case, you could send it back to the taxpayer, but,
One came in just that.
right.
That parcel,
Okay.
and I sent that back to the.
Right, if you get a full overpayment check that is just for that parcel, take a copy, because you're gonna get questions. So just take a copy of that check and send it right back. Now, I would not send it back for 2 weeks. Because basically, they may be sending you a replacement check because they know that that first one bounced. So what we do is we hold them for 2 weeks.
So kind of question this, because I think for a lot of the guys, they have more money. So like I think about a resident who comes in really worried about how you can't like overpayment.
Yeah.
I think we've always defaulted it to turning it to the property owner, in the sense that they're like, it's still gonna be their responsibility to figure it out. But at least it's done with the resident and they don't have to worry about getting a check from.
Right, from CoreLogic, yeah.
CoreLogic.
Yep,
To that extent, like I got one parcel I got paid 3 times last year, but we only do 2 rounds of refunds, so that balance that we owed back to that resident, which is accumulated, and when it got to that point, if I can get that check, I got the check for the full 200.
okay,
I could care less where the payment came from, the person's paying.
right, right.
The rest of the owner.
Right. Well, and I mean, we do tell, we have many people call and say, well, who wrote that check? I'm like, no, we don't track that. That's not our responsibility or yours to tell them who made the payment. Now, there's many times we like to be nice to people. Quite honestly, with us, quite honestly, it depends who calls. If it's some mortgage loan person, I'm like, you deal with it. If it's an actual person who needs some help, that's a little different. But go ahead.
So we only do 1 round of refunds in February, February 7th, is that typical, is that what everyone else does?
That is exactly what you should do. Wait till you hear Bob tomorrow talk about the fact that he sent an overpayment back after, and it was a mistake. And then he had to try to get that money back from that person. Stuff can happen you collect sort of, I'm sure it seems really long, but you collect for such a short time that quite honestly, there can be things that are returned. We're just dealing right now with a case where the check was deposited in December with the municipality. They didn't get the notice that it had bounced until February 9th. Now, 5-6 weeks. Stuff like that can happen. Or when we get to settlement, stuff can happen. You can discover it was on the wrong parcel. That happens. Happens everywhere. So, it is best to wait. We always talk about that at some point in this training. So, if you have 2 rounds of it.
We just corresponded. So.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The January settlement. I'll
Right,
reconcile with you guys, fine, we're good to go. That's-
Right.
February.
Well, and we're gonna talk a little more about overpayments later, so, hold that thought, but, okay, where was I in here? We'll see, large checks, we did that. Yeah, there's a few other tips in the manual. Those are the big ones. We're gonna jump to lottery credits. And since you've all done this, you get a lottery credit form. You enter it into GCS. LandNet people don't listen at this point. You put it into GCS, you scan it, you email it to us. Then we enter it on our side, and then at settlement, when you send the email to us with the export, you will tell us how many lottery credits you added or took out. So it's still, I think most of you have got emails from Veronica in our office who does the lottery credits. So, I get those emails, get them to her, but she'll, anything we get in our office, you will get from Veronica. You will get those scans, and then we'll bounce them out at each settlement. You know, oh, go ahead.
Please scan them to the treasurer admin.
Yes, yep, everything to that email.
And then don't mail them anymore. We don't have to mail them. Right, last year's first year, I think that we just scanned them and emailed them to you, but then we also emailed or mailed the original to you.
Oh, good God, no.
We've done that for years.
Oh, no,
Don't think I'm crazy.
no.
You're
Oh,
not.
no, I don't. Trust me. I mean, when I came into this office, you do not know the pieces of paper I had to throw out. So, I understand that there was a lot of paper. Now, not lottery credits, we have to keep those for some weird amount of time. But yeah, less paper, better. No, do not mail. Oh, Lord, don't mail. But I mean, I wouldn't get it for a week. That would be crazy. So,
It's another belt suspended.
I like my email contact. So, okay, the one key, I had this happen with 2 municipalities last year. You cannot enter just lottery credits in a batch in GCS. You have to enter payments in that batch as well. If it is just lottery credits, I get an empty batch when you export. So we were off by like 17 lottery credits last year and, spent forever trying to figure it out. So don't just include payments, whatever. On that note, if possible, enter the lottery credit before the payment. Always enter you can't always. There'll be many times you'll get a payment in December. They'll hear about this new lottery credit thing and they'll get you a form in January. Oh, yeah. I mean, I know a lot of municipalities send out letters saying, get your lottery credit now. We send one out now every summer. We've done it for the last 3 summers. And, to anyone who looks like they should have one, but you will still get more. And people will just have heard about it. And why haven't I got this for the last 20 years? I'm like, I don't know. But so try if you can. And, if they're both sitting in front of you, make sure the lottery credit goes first. You'll balance so much better. And oh Lord, you'll balance so much better with us because that's when it really starts messing up because I entered that lottery credit separate. So that's when it really gets screwy. So enter it before, but not always an option. Lottery credit removal, the same thing, certainly try to take it off first. The only thing with lottery credit removals is think about those because if that person has paid the first installment only, if you take off a lottery credit, they are now going to be short for their first installment. So they will, February 1st, they will go delinquent. So if you don't get, none of you get that many removals, but it is something to think about. If they paid the full amount, then that's fine. Then they'll just owe a little more in July. But we have had cases where they killed a lottery credit because they didn't deserve it. And now they're delinquent and we send them that notice in February, they're very happy. So, because now they're delinquent and they owe right away because they lose the ability to do 2 installments at that point. So that's not a pretty thing. Okay, now you GCS people can take sort of a little nap. Land nav, lottery credits will be slightly different. We don't both have to enter them. If I get a lottery credit form, I will enter it. If you get a lottery credit form, you will enter it. If you get a removal, you will enter it. If I get a removal, I will enter it and I will send it to you. And the reason why we're sending you the removals is because, again, that first installment issue becomes a question. I need you to know that it exists. You don't have to do anything with it. But you're going to need to know that that removal exists because the tax is now higher than what you're seeing on your tax bill and what that person is seeing on their tax bill. It's rare. This isn't going to be a huge thing, but I will send you that. For those lottery credit forms, the ad one, the ILC 100s, at some point in the end of December and the end of January, you will send me those forms. Just scan them in. You can send them all at once. And the reason we have to do that is that the county is the holder of lottery credit forms. Because, you know, people come in all the time and they want to look at their lottery credit form from 2022. Yeah, whatever. So we keep those forms. So you will have to scan them all, just whip them through and send them to us. If it's easier to mail them, you could do that, though I can't imagine that would be true. But yeah, at some point at the end of December and at the end of February, I mean, I won't care because I see them entered because they're in LandNav already. We now share a program, so we will both see it.
Also understand that
Okay.
whatever you put in the land now will appear out on active pay the very next day. The treasurer's office will see it immediately, but the next day it will be out there for the world to see. So it's best that you make any mistakes, try and correct it later. Not always possible, but
Yeah, it's right.
that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Even a system that, things you can notice of water, I think it's not how it should. So, hey, goes through the boat, as you can.
Yep.
It applies for, in the old system, it's really easy to add those, or add a lot of credit and look at the boat. The new system, when that's seamless. With
Yeah.
setting it on.
It honestly, it's just, it'll be entered like as a payment, just like it was in GCS. It's basically exactly the same.
And then similar to the DCS, make sure you get that entered in first before. you
Yep.
actually process it.
Yep.
Okay.
Because then it will recalculate what they actually owe for the first installment. Now, again, if they're paying more, that's fine too, but you know, always enter that ladder credit first. Because it changes the entire tax bill. So obviously you want that piece in if you can have it first. So, so I think that's the big thing on lottery credits with LandNav. That's the one difference. I'm sorry, what was?
I just have one question. So if someone has a removal, is there a removal with pay, I don't know, pay if it's.
Yep. You add it in?
So if they have a removal, you said that.
Yep.
They have a removal.
Yep.
then they're, the first half.
Right, it'll make the first installment higher. So they have to owe is higher.
So if they're only wanting to pay the first part, they have no removals, can say. Like, don't
That
actually have
absolutely
removal.
tell me.
They'll recalculate it.
But
But
again,
if it's.
the
you know,
system will recalculate, but
Where am I at?
yeah, the system will still recalculate.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that will still, once you remove that credit, you will suddenly see that the first installment is what they owe is higher. So if they have a check for what they thought was the first installment, it's gonna be too little.
Removals aren't gonna happen on.
They don't. But, you know, but everyone will have one at some point, so, but yes, I mean, it shouldn't be a problem, and generally the people who are removing it, a lot of times they're paying the full amount. So,
One major reason that people want, if it's not the state requesting that they get removed, that people want them removed. Is they own property in Florida, if they get the $150 tax credit in Wisconsin, they can't get the $5,000 tax credit in Florida.
Yeah.
So that's the major reason that I've seen the people wanting removals or asking for them themselves. There's also some conscientious objectors to the lottery and, you know, that kind of thing that does happen.
It's like this mail them instead, if somebody requests for the bad practice in the outlet, and you tax bill that you first install the companies.
no, all you do, I don't need to see any of that, but what they may want is a tax bill that's corrected. You know, just like you normally did, just correct that tax bill. I mean, quite honestly, the tax roll is done at that point. You know, we make these little adjustments and play with these things, but, you know, according to the state, the tax bill's done. Everything on that has to be paid. So, you know, the lottery credits are the one weird adjustment to that. Obviously, I'm not touching my computer now.
If someone calls in asking how much more they need to pay, it's the same dollar amount that the lottery credit on their tax bill reads. And if they want a corrected tax bill, print out a copy from your PDF, take a red pen, cross it out and add it to their amount due.
I'm not a treasurer, but I believe statute says that you have to correct the tax bill when that
Yeah.
happens. So
Yeah.
now, what that means, if
Yeah.
it means correcting it in the system or on a piece of paper, I don't know. I don't think anybody's
Right,
said it's paper.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean. So yeah, all they really want is the amount. So what they should want is the amount. Okay, lottery credits often result in in overpayments. Because again, that person pays in December, the full amount of the tax due. In January, he talks to a neighbor, finds out there's a lottery credit, never heard of it before, wants his $283 lottery credit. So he comes in with a lottery credit form, you end up with an overpayment. So generally, that's all fine and good. In February, Adam prints out an overpayment report. We send you this full list of everyone who has overpayments in your municipality, and you make those overpayment checks happen. There's a slight dilemma with that with our new system. Your GCS report will show exactly, if you're in GCS, the rest of you can ignore. Okay, it will show your perfect overpayments. That it will be just fine. It's when you export it to us and we put it in our new system that it's a little more sketchy. So what we talked about this morning, and Steve had a great idea. I keep a spreadsheet of your overpayments. I don't know if some of you already do that, I know. I don't care if it's a, you know, yellow tablet where you just keep down the person's name and address and the amount. Keep that list, because I'm not as confident that what I give you in February is going to be correct. And I don't want you to miss anything and we'll have to be cleaning that up for months.
We had problems with Westport 2 years in a row with overpayments. That's why
But the problem is because they're coming into our system, we have problems with everyone because it's now in our new system and that's a little screwier. So, and Steve brought up this morning, when you run an overpayment, print that receipt and keep a separate, you know, like print two and keep that one separate. So you have this stack of paper that's your overpayments. Then you wouldn't even have to keep the spreadsheet, but you'd have those so that when we send you that report, you can compare the two and make sure they're correct. Hopefully this won't be an issue for long. But at this point, I'm just not very confident of the overpayment stuff in our system.
And we've repeatedly asked Land Nav to fix the problem, and they fixed the problem, but then they've created others. We don't exactly know where we're at.
I personally, right now in our system, cannot print a receipt that shows an overpayment.
Maybe we fix that, right? Maybe.
So this is not, you know, you in Land Nav, definitely keep, if at that point we can print a receipt that shows an overpayment, otherwise keep a spreadsheet, keep something, especially you guys in Land Nav, keep something separate from that system. Again, hopefully by next year, this won't be an issue. Well, I mean, we have been fighting up about overpayments for a year. They just, for whatever reason, they have a perfectly good GCS system that overpayments work in. All we want is for it to do that. And sometimes it'll do it. Like literally until a week ago, I could print an overpayment receipt. It's weird. So we're working on that, and hopefully even those of you in Land Nav will, that this won't be an issue, hopefully. Just to be sure, this is the one area that I really think you should keep something separate, just to make sure that you have the right numbers in the end. Okay, so I think that's it on that. Any questions on what we've gone through so far? No water in there. Where are we? I'm supposed to have my clock up so I can see time. Do you guys want to take a little break? Want to keep rolling? Okay. Let's take a 10-minute break. We'll meet back about 2:35. That work? 2:35 having basically arrived. I don't know, some of us worked in the legislature and they'd have session at 10 a.m. in the morning. About 2:30, they would actually go into session and they would say, pound the gavel and say, the hour of 10 a.m. arriving. I'm like, dude. But, you know, you got used to not doing time when you worked there. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna talk about now is voids. Oh, go away. GCS people, voids do not show up in the export. So you get a payment from someone and you get a return in December, you will void that payment. And when I get the import, it will show nothing, which is exactly how it should look. Those of you in LandNav will void it. I will be able to see it. What you guys have to be in, we'll talk about this more tomorrow, but what you guys need to know is that there are two kinds of voids. One will show up in Access Dane, one will not. If you get a return check, you want to call it an NSF return check kind of void. If your person, someone in your office put a payment on a parcel and oops, it was the wrong parcel, and you void that and you put it on the correct parcel, you'll want to say that was an entry error, not a return check. Then it will not show up on Access Dane. Those of you in GCS don't have to worry about that, because if you make a mistake and you put it in that date, you delete it, which I tried with LandNav for about, well, I just tried a couple weeks ago, but they have decided that they are wiser than us and that our auditors don't want us to have the ability to delete. It is a long fight with me and LandNav, but I'm not winning. So those of you on LandNav, you will have to choose one of those two voids. You on GCS, don't worry about that yet. You can still, oops, I just entered on the wrong parcel, delete it and start over again. You still got a balance for the day. It's not like auditors don't know that. So you're good. So the key with voids is, when do you have to send the county a form, a void form? And I would say anytime you have a question about if that void was entered correctly and you want me to look at it, send me a void form. Just tell me, you know, what the parcel is, what the amount is, what batch it's in, and I'll check it. If I get your import and I look at it, I'm like, well, there's no payment there, and I'll throw out your void form. That, you know, easiest way to do it. The other thing you can do is wait till settlement is, and you can look on Access Dane and see if there's a payment there that shouldn't be there. But in general, they just don't show up and everything works just fine. So now the trick is, then we get to after February settlement, then all bets are off, because at that point, then you need to send me that void form, because you've already settled, everything's done, and I have everything. So at that point, you need to send me that void form. As you know, we will then enter it as a special, because you have settled on it already, and it will come back to you in September when I pay you for all your specials. Unless that person hasn't paid it yet, which happens. The only question I get about this a lot is, okay, so you have a payment in December, it voids on January 10th. So you've already settled on it. Now you get the payment on January 17th to replace it. So now it's also in your February batch. So your February settlement includes what is truly the payment. So your question always is, are we double paying that settlement? You are not, because settlement for February is everything you collected from December through the end of January. I get a big number and I subtract what you paid in January. So it will subtract out that one that got double paid, basically, in two different parcels or two different settlements. So that should work pretty slick. Let's see, that should do it. Okay, so then Troy talked about these a little, but adjusting specials. Okay, some guy doesn't actually have a house yet, but he got a trash bill. He owns the land. It happens all the time. You just put them on all parcels and oops, this guy doesn't actually own a home. He's building one and it costs $2 million, but he doesn't have one. So you need to remove that trash charge on his tax bill. You can do that through very early in January. Property listing does basically like right before Martin Luther King Day, they turn the entire system over to 2024 taxes. They are done with 23. I know we've just started, but they are done. So they turn it over. At that point, we can't change a special anymore. At that point, you need to pay the county for that special amount. So for that guy's trash bill, you need to send us a check and pay us for that special. In September, I will send that back to you as part of your specials payments. So you will get it back, you just have to wait 6 months. But it has to be paid for, because at that point, it's beyond where I can change the tax bill. So there's a form, it's right on that municipal website where you send us your adjustments. You tell me, I mean, if you want to send me a snapshot of your GCS, how it looks of the bill, whatever, but I need to know the parcel, what you're taking off, what you're adding on. The big key to any of these special adjustments though, is that if you take that trash off that guy's land, you need to redo your SOT. Because now your SOT is over, your final number on your statement of taxes filed with DOR is over what the amount it should be. So if you change a special, now a lot of times you put the trash on the wrong parcel. He does own a home, you put it on the land instead of the home. If you just take it off one and put it on another, your SOT doesn't change. So your best bet is to take one off one and on the other. Then nothing shakes out. Otherwise, you need to update the SOT, get it to DOR, you amend it on the form with DOR, and then get us a copy of the amended. Those are, I think you're all sort of used to doing those to a great extent. Now we have omits, splits, and corrections. They're a lot of fun. Omits, in the reverse case, you got a guy with a nice land building a beautiful $2 million house. However, that house did not exist on January 1st. But your assessor went out to assess it in March. Beautiful house. So on his tax bill, he is paying for a house that didn't exist on January 1st, 2023. So he doesn't have to pay taxes on it until 2024. So that would be a correction. You have to get that amount off the tax bill. So you will do, what is it, 7, I think I have that on the next page. It just is the, one more page. Nope. Well, it's like a correction. It shows up on your SOT. It's like a chapter 70 something. So in that case, you're going to have to, basically, if it's, the tax bill is the tax bill, like we talked about before, that bill is done. Someone needs to pay us for that $2 million home because it's on the tax roll. So what has to happen is the municipality has to pay the taxing districts that full amount. And then you'll file this correction on your SOT, you'll file the DOR, and that money will come back to you from all the taxing districts. A little complicated, but that happens. And that's if the person is paid, if the person has paid it, you pay them. You just pay them back. Then it evens out. Omits is more if he actually does the assessment on December 20th, but the house is actually built by, whatever, that probably won't happen. He forgets the house on the tax bill, and it should be on the tax bill. So now you have to create an omitted bill, which will be higher. Again, you need to file those with DOR. Either this year or next year, they'll have to go on your SOT, depending on when you find it. You create the tax bill, that person pays you guys. You may have to then share that. Whatever DOR will tell you if you have to share that with the county school districts and tech colleges or not. Generally you do. So then you get the full payment. Once you get it, then you have to send each portion based on the mill rate that year to all of us. Omitteds are a lot of fun. They're basically we have on that municipal webpage, when you sign into your account, you can create split bills or omitted bills. With the correction bills, you do the cross out thing like you do with the lottery credit. But you can create those bills in that system. The tax manual walks you through like the steps of creating each of those with some screenshots. So if you need help on it, you know, some stuff we can help you with, some you actually have to contact DOR about. But you don't have a lot of them, so hopefully you don't have to worry about them. It's just, I bring it up because there have been more of them over the last few years, unfortunately. So you may get one and we can deal with it. Those are adjustments. And then, yeah, then that will be on your SOT. That's how the state balances it out. Otherwise, the way they're looking at it, the tax roll for the year for Dane County is wrong. So on the SOT is how you correct that, even if it's a year or two later. You can do those. So split bills, you have the best ones are condos generally, like some owner is building the condo, and suddenly on April 15th, it's 10 condos. So we have one parcel, one tax bill, and suddenly it's 10 people's condos, and they want split bills for 10 people's condos. So at that point is when you have to create a split bill. You take it has to, those 10 now have to exactly equal the original tax bill. But it will now be 10 different bills for 10 different people. In 2024, that'll already be 10 parcels. Troy and his team will be creating those 10 parcels. So it will be on each one. But for this year, they might ask you, and you have to create the split bills for them to send to each of those people who now own those condos. That's a general example, but that's tends to be what they are. That and duplexes sometimes. You will also need, though, your assessor to give you the values of each one of those condos. Generally, it's not 10. City of Sun Prairie had a 17 one, I think. I think it was 17 split bills on one parcel. She was very happy. So, yeah, it happens. Generally, it's 2 or 3. You get it too in rural areas where you have a farmer who splits off pieces for separate homes. So you will, every now and then you'll see them. Hopefully they can deal with it by themselves, but not always the case. Okay, so now we're at that fun part where you're done for collections in December. and it's time to export stuff to us. Like I said, use that admin, account. I don't care when you get us your December collections. Some people, they leave the office on December 31st at 2 o'clock and they ship me their list. That's fine. Again, it's either going to be in December or it's going to be in January. It doesn't matter when you do that. Now, if you do it too soon, school districts might frown upon how little they get. Because, I mean, let's face it, this January settlement is all about school districts. They need the money before February. Because they're running out because they're halfway through the school year already. So I mean, I don't know, when did the 2 settlements start? I don't even know. It's been a while now, but there used to be just one. Long time. When I was a kid, I know my dad, they only did it. So I'm going with that theory. So, but it could be a really long time ago. So basically, cut it off at some point. Like I said, you're gonna get people who, no matter what, want their thing dated December 31st. If you are in GCS, I don't care what date you use. You can use December 31st. You don't have to, but you can, because you're in batches. So when I get your export, I get batch 1 through batch 10. If you are on LandNav, I need you to tell me the date to cut off. So if you've entered everything on January 2nd that you want in settlement for February, or for January, then you have to stop while I run a report. So I need to run a report. You can still enter stuff, but when that person comes to your counter on January 2nd, I'm going to use January 2nd. You need to enter their payment January 3rd. We'll talk about this more tomorrow, because that is the big difference with LandNav. I mean, it's happening together. So you can't be entering stuff while I'm trying to do settlement. Now, again, worst case scenario, it's like I said before, in February, whatever you didn't pay in January goes back. You just subtract out. So it would still work, but I think we would all have a lot more trouble balancing if we started playing that game. So it will be a little different for LandNav. And then the other thing is, you can send me as early as you want. If you're going to send me something, if you get bogged down and it's going to come on January 4th, if it's later than January 3rd, just email us. I mean, I have plenty of municipalities to do. It's not like if you can't get them to me by January 3rd, it's done. I'm sitting waiting for you. I have plenty to do. So, we just like to know if there's some reason that you're having trouble, or if you just got 400 of them on December or on January 1st, and you want to get as many in as you can. All that's fine, but just give us a heads up as to what's up with it. So you have to make those payments by January 15th, which is why you want to get them to us so that we have time to make sure everything's right. In that email, you will also have to tell me how many batches you created and what numbers they are and how many lottery credits they have. And you, that all those batches have to be closed. You can't have an empty batch or an open batch to export. Okay, so now you've sent out all your checks for January, for January settlement, you're taking your payments till January 31st. Now it is time to export the end and wipe your hands of tax collection. The export part is pretty much the same. There's really, at that point, there's really nothing different. I would recommend, strongly encourage, I guess, is the word, that you don't use any date after January 31st. If you've got a bunch on February 2nd and you want to enter them, I know the date is really February, but I would still enter those as January 31st. It'll be in again, GCS people, it'll be in a batch. So, it's not like I need to know what the date is. I just pull those batches. The key for February settlement, for those exporting, is I cannot have a batch that is an earlier number than the end batch of January. Okay, that was a terrible way to say that. If you have batches 1 through 10 that you do January settlement for, you cannot have number 9 in February settlement. It has to be 11 through whatever. Batches have to be consecutive, and I can't have one that's before the end. Hard to explain that way, but so that's really the key for GCS. Again, for people in land nav, what you guys are going to have to do is tell me when you've entered your last payment. Everything else comes to us. And then I will do your settlement based on that end date. Okay, so before, like towards the end of January, you will get an email from us that says, how many lottery credits did you enter? How many did you take off? I will send you a list of all the lottery credits we have entered, all the parcel numbers, and entered or removed. You will get back to me and say, I don't have this one and I don't have this one. I will then send them to you. Or you might say, okay, you're missing this one, and this one. Then I will ask you to send those to me. I may have lost the email. I may have thought I printed it, but I was out of ink. I could have missed it. So if we balance before February settlement, it saves us a lot of trouble when Adam and I are trying to balance these. So we'll just get to that. The only other thing with the batches, when you export to us, it's one zip file. I don't want each batch separately. In fact, I can't balance with each batch separately. So it's just one zip file. That's how it's created. So hopefully that will work. I don't know if I talk about this. On February 1st, if you get a lottery credit in the mail, someone walks in with a lottery credit, it doesn't matter if the postmark is December 1st from the year before, you cannot enter a lottery credit. You are done. You have to send that lottery credit back and tell that person to fill out an LC 300 form with the State Department of Revenue. You are done. It doesn't matter what the postmark is. You cannot enter lottery credits after January 3rd. Neither can I. So the only thing I do is sometimes we adjust if we're finding ourselves different, but we're done at that point. Everything has to go to the state. So, oops, oh, no, I moved pages and then didn't talk about this. Okay, so then now February 2nd, you've shipped everything to us. You could care less, except you got to write those checks. You're going to still get checks. You're going to get checks in February, March, April, May, June, July, maybe even August. Just make a copy of it because you will also get calls about them. Maybe 1 in 10, but it makes it so much easier if you have a copy of that payment and what date it came in. So I would put the check and the envelope on your copier, make a copy of it, then ship us everything. I would even prefer if on the envelope, some of you have a stamp that said it was received, perfect. Some of you just write, this was received on January 3rd, because we have to play that whole grace period thing. So if they get it physically to us by the 7th, it's usually the 7th of February, it is still a timely payment. We have in our world accepted that if you guys physically have it, and I mean physically, not postmarked, if you physically have it by February 7th, we count it as timely. So but it has to be in your hands. It can't be a postmark of literally, February 2nd. Because, and you don't have it yet. If you get it on the 8th, I mean, this year, the 7th and the 8th weren't even over a holiday or weekend or anything. We get it on the 8th, bam, your taxes go up. So, yeah, that's why it helps us to have exactly what date you had it in your hands. You pay settlement on the 20th of February. I always mix up which ones are 20 and which, because August is 20. I don't know why I don't have that on here, sorry. But yeah, I think February is the 20th, not the 15th. Am I wrong? No, okay, that's right. So I should have that. By the 20th, you have to pay. They go back and forth. So, I mean, January is 15th and that was 20. I'm not sure why. So when you get, I'll show this, it's easier to show it. As I said, February settlement is much more complicated, not because of, what you send in, but now there's a ton of documents. You get that overpayment report from us, maybe right, maybe wrong. You get like the sheets that specifically show what you owe each municipality. You get, I think we do a specials report then, what's been paid, what hasn't been paid. There's all those other pieces that you get from us at that point. This is the most important sheet. This is the piece to keep in your head always. So for February, what you will see, this is basically all the work you did shows up on one stupid page of paper, which is a little discouraging, but so here's the levy. Here's everything in the levy. Here's what you paid in January. Here's what you paid in February. Here's what I will pay you in April. And here's what I'll pay you in August. But you know what I mean. So this is everything you need. The only difference is you have this county number here for your February settlement. Most of you will have something that comes down here. I will create this little bar at the bottom of your page that shows what you owe the county, which is this number. Oh, whoops, I'm too far over. It's this number. Plus, if you have a managed forest land, whatever payments came in managed forest land, the county gets 20%. So you get to keep part of this, I get 20%. So what I do is on the bottom of this page, I take the February settlement plus that 20%, and this is the amount you owe me. So this is the settlement for the county, which is different than this number. You may also have a conversion. If you do, then the county gets 50% of ag conversion. So this has to be a separate check. It can't just be totaled on with that check. So in this check, you have to pay, this is the amount that you got, you have to give me half of that. So that'll be a separate check for ag conversion. If there, this year, as Troy and Adam were talking about, all we have is ag conversion. And, you'll have those the septic from public health, but the only thing we're adding, the only thing that will be on the bottom of here for this year is MFL if you have it and ag conversion if you have it. There's no lottery credit penalty this year because they didn't do an audit, thank goodness. And there's no farm drainage this year. I'm not sure why, but.
Because the, Farm Drainage Board has not submitted any new assessments for the year, so
Oh, okay.
nothing can be delinquent.
Okay, so none of that either. Makes it much easier. Farm drainage, if we ever have it, we get all of it. Well, we don't get any of it. We actually just do all the work and then send it to somebody else. So really not a good topic. So this is really, the Bible for everyone that needs. It's got everything on it in one sheet. Okay, so I think I've talked about most of this stuff, but I had to go over to make sure you don't do an export to the county. The key, and this is why some of you should love to be on Access Day, on Land Nav. Every night at midnight, as Steve is saying, your payments will update to the web. So if people are calling you and saying, what's my balance due? Again, if it's a real person, sometimes I help them out. If it's a mortgage company and they want to know, go to the website. So now you can send them to the website. It'll be updated at midnight. They will know exactly what they pay, what the balance due is. So that is a bonus for you guys. Okay, so remember earlier on, I talked that there was going to be a change to the cover sheet of the dog page. It is not a huge change. It will not affect your lives or the time you spend on dogs, which God knows is way too much anyway. So what was happening is the county clerk has to track certain information for the state. And what we were struggling with is in the kennel licenses, there are kennels that have 9 dogs, not the full 12. Then there are kennels that have 18 dogs. What they needed to know was the true number of tags. So, you know, before we didn't have this piece, so everything just went in as 12 and then they didn't balance. They'd have to figure out how many there actually were in the kennel and how many extra were in the kennel. So we basically just added this column so that it's a full total of the number of tags they need. And then anything added, so anything that is above 12 is also charged that $13.75. So you'll put that number in here. This number won't add to anything because I don't know why I have a 0. I'd have to check that. You'll just have the full number. Let's say you have a kennel of 9. No, not different. Let's say you have a kennel of 13 dogs. This will be the 12. This will be 13. This will be 1. Okay. I think I wrote explanation in the instructions for that to make that more clear how to end. It's just basically so that we get the full number of dogs, so that we balance out the number of dogs. But I'll check my instructions on that to make sure I have that right. Okay. Any questions on that? I know dogs are like a lot of work for very little money, but whatever. So now there's just a bunch of like final stuff. I can get you out early. So there's just a couple of things that I want to bring up because we've had either some issues with them or whatever. But so PC 200s are chargebacks for uncollected personal property. Since personal property is going away, usually, and I haven't heard the final from DOR on this, but you have 2 years to, if you have these personal properties that are uncollected and the business is gone. I mean, that happens. You're never going to collect it. I mean, they're bankrupt, they're dissolved, they're gone. You can basically then ask the DOR to allow you to charge every taxing district for the amount of that personal property. Because you've been trying to collect it for a year, 2 years, whatever. So then we get a notice that this is what we owe as chargebacks for uncollected property, personal property. And the county, the school districts, the tech college, we then have to pay you that amount so that you're not, so that you don't lose the full amount. You still lose your portion, but at least you get something back for it. So there are those there. I didn't put this one in, but people don't seem to have as much trouble with. There's also that, the PC 201, which is where you file with the state for uncollected overpaid real estate. That one we pay in February. There's also if you've had to pay back taxpayers for something. Right, that's the word, refunded or rescinded. Then you can get the taxing districts to pay you that back as well. So again, you don't, most of those you don't seem to have any trouble with at all. So, just a brief discussion if you want to have it. We do morning and afternoon sessions of this same one. We do them virtually. So I don't think any decision will be made on this quickly. Would you be more interested in having a full day, do your this training in the morning or afternoon and the computer training in the afternoon? You'd lose a whole day, but it'd be one day instead of coming 2 half days. Just we're starting to think about some of that stuff, especially with land nav training coming up for everyone. I mean, would it help you to have the full day where you're just immersed in it? But no, you're not in your office. And I get for many of you, that's very difficult to be out of the office for a full day. So think about that a little bit. If you have any strong opinions, just email us and we may talk about this a couple of years before it ever changes. But I just wanted to put it out there that, if that's something of interest, or we could just do one and you could either do it in person or do it virtually. We can figure that out. The most important topic of the day is paper clips, as many of you saw as you walked in. So the county treasurer's office is a recipient. We get all the deposits from all the departments in the county. And we get the paperwork that goes with those deposits. Every single day, stacks and stacks of paper clips. So those 2 boxes of big and small paper clips are part of a set of 6 full boxes like that of paper clips. So we had I don't even know how it came up, but we had this conversation that, you guys might need some paper clips. So grab some handfuls. I have envelopes there for you to shove them in. I have envelopes this big. If you want to fill them, absolutely do it. If I could get rid of those 2 boxes of paper clips, I would be like a hero in my office because they just keep stacking up. We've tried putting them on the bulletin board. We have this online bulletin board at the county for other county departments who keep sending them to us. They must need them back, but we don't seem to get rid of any. So all yours.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Don't you also get a number of rubber bands?
we get rubber bands too.
What happens to them?
They generally go back to printing. They go back to a print and mail.
Burn me to them or something.
Oh, yeah, probably. That's just boxes.
But maybe she collected it.
One of our staff has, we get, how many boxes do we get in our office? Paper boxes, envelope boxes. I think she takes half of them home. I have no idea where you could put all those boxes. So she likes boxes. So that's all I have, unless you guys certainly have questions. I don't know if Adam wants to add in the final question and an answer discussion. We'll certainly be here if you have other questions. Sure. Yeah, we're just gonna shut the door and so we'll be out of here. Yeah.
And I probably should know that. Are you guys, when am I gonna go on landing? Is it us to choose or you take so many municipalities in here to?
Well, this year,
The
The question for those. not-
oh, okay, so the question was, when do I have to go on to land nav? Well, this will be a good test this year. Bob, as you probably all know, from the town of Westport, has been doing it with his staff for 2 years. We're at it, we were ready to go to more municipalities last year, but our vendor was not. So we canceled it last year after I'd done all the training documents, but, so this year we're bringing on 8 more. We'll see how that goes. We have some big ones, we have some little ones, we have some middle-sized ones. If this would go very well this year, I would expect we would do, maybe get to the point where we're half next year. We don't know. But at some point, it's gonna be everyone.
We would like everybody to be on in 2 years. I know that's what the vendor like, and that's what
Yeah.
we'd like, but whether or
But
not that's possible.
you pull municipalities in each year to.
To do training.
We
Yep.
don't say, hey, take the air pass. be on.
No, no, I mean, it's because we have to go there. I mean, at some point, I mean, if next year they say GCF program, we're not doing it anymore, it's gone. I mean, it doesn't exist anymore. So at some point, we're all gonna be on.
Something changed where they couldn't make code changes, something changed in state statutes or whatever,
Yeah.
I could see them mowing the flood and say, everybody done. So sooner we get there, the better it does. It, you know, if it's a good, if it were a good working program, it would help all of us out, but.
It would. I mean, it really would, if we were all on one, so we weren't trying to do two different things.
And that's the other problem, yeah, two different groups doing things two different ways, it's gonna be a well, pain in the ass for everybody this year and next.
Yes, it will. So yes, it will happen. We just don't know if it's, I would expect for most of you, if you're not on this year, a good share of you will be on next year, and by the year after that, I would say certainly. That's sort of the plan at this point. Or like Steve said, if something has to change on the tax bills, the legislature does something that makes the tax bills different, GCS will be done. Because they won't update that old program. There's no way they will. So that's where we are. Welcome to the real world.
Welcome to your world.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, we've been on it since October 20. So, right, when they had to do the change with COVID, you didn't have interest and penalty until after October 1st, October 31st, whatever. That they said, we're not doing that change in the old system. You're going to the new one.
Perhaps you should keep your rubber bands, because if you have to go back to the way it used to be, you rubber band receipt packets together with your checks, and then you run them through.
Yeah, no. That's not gonna happen. Well, not in my time. Okay, so any other questions, you know where to find us. You have our emails, you have our phone numbers. That's, that there's gonna be stuff that comes up, always is. Otherwise, what would the thrill be if it didn't? So yeah, let's get your tax bills out so that, we don't have, hopefully then people will be quiet and leave you alone for Christmas.